So today's lesson is aimed at year 7 really, because we're talking today about the present tense, and this is a really important topic because when we left school just before we ended, we were about to start talking about verbs and some grammar in French, which we haven't really done much of yet, so this is really important. This is also really useful for year 8 and year 9 and year 10 to make sure we know it in terms of revision. So let's have a look. And what is the present tense, first of all? That's a question we need to ask ourselves. Now, the present tense, and throughout this video you should pause it every now and again and answer some of these questions. The present tense is talking about something that's going on at the moment. So if someone rings you up on the phone and says, "What are you doing?" you might say something like, "I'm watching the telly," or "I'm listening to music," or "I'm eating my tea," something like that. And it can also be what you do normally. So you could say, for example, on Saturdays I play football. That would also be the present tense. So I eat, I watch, I play, I listen, I am listening, that sort of thing. And when we use the present tense, we talk a lot about verbs. Can we ever think about what a verb is? Well, a verb, when we talk about in primary school, is usually what we say is a doing word. So it's usually an action word. But we just need to be a little bit careful with that, because sometimes it's not necessarily like an action like running. There can also be some simple verbs that are not real actions. So for example, if I said to you, "I am lazy," is there a verb in that sentence? Well, yes, the verb in that sentence is am. And the sentence, "I have a dog," is there a verb in that sentence? Yes, the verb is have. So it doesn't necessarily have to be running around all over the place. It can be just a simple verb. But almost all sentences have verbs in them. They're very, very important. So what we're going to do today is, first of all, when we're talking about the present tense in French, we need to think, first of all, about the verb that we need. So what we could do is, there's a few ways of finding the verb we need, is we could look it up in a dictionary. So here's an example of a dictionary, the verb to fall, and we don't want these nouns up here, we want the verb. And tomber is the French verb to fall. We also might find another one, to cut, for example. We've got lots of nouns here, but we've also got the verb to cut, which is couper. So we could find a verb in a dictionary. That could be the first place we look. There are already lots of verbs that we really know. We'll come back to those in a minute. Just before we move on to those verbs, I just want to talk about how we can use verbs, because we can use them in all sorts of different forms with different people, different subjects in the verb. So we could simply start off with je for I, and then we can move on to tu, meaning you, or il for he, and elle for she. So I play, you play, he plays, she plays, for example. We could also say nous for we, vous for you, il for they, and elle for they. Now if we just have a look at that for a minute, we need to get used to this, because this is what we're going to see a lot in the future. When you move on to year 8 and year 9 and year 10, you're going to see this a lot, so it's important that you get used to it. Now, some of you might have spotted already that in French there are 2 words for you, and you might think that's quite unusual, but actually it's not that unusual, because in lots of languages, English is actually the only language I know of where we only have 1 word for you. In lots of languages they have more than 1 word for you, and the reason is, this one near the top, tu, we would use that word if we're talking about to a friend or someone you know really well, and the one down towards the bottom, vous, means you, if you're talking to someone who you don't know very well, someone who you're talking in a serious situation with, or it could be used to talk to a group of people. You might also have noticed that there are also in French 2 words for they, il and elle. Il is the word you'd use if you're talking about a group of boys. So if you want to say they're playing football in the park, you would use the word il. And if you want to talk about a group of girls, saying girls are playing football in the park, you would use the word elle. So there's 2 different words in French for they, just to be a bit more precise about things. Now you might also wonder at this point, what happens if there's a mixed group? So what happens if there's 5 girls and 5 boys who are playing football in the park? And the answer is that we would always use the masculine form, the il form. That's just because historically over the years, that's the way French has evolved, that we would use the masculine form if there's any doubt. That could be, by the way, if there's like 1 boy and 10 girls playing football, then we'd still use the il form. So that's what our verb could be looking like. And we should also ask ourselves, what have these top 4 got in common? There's a reason why they're set out like this, and the answer is that they're all one person. So I, you, he, she. We're talking about just one person there, and that's why they go in that order. Je, tu, il, elle. The bottom 4 people, or sets of people, are when there's more than one person involved. So we, they. We, you, they. There's more than one person involved there, and that's why they've come together at the bottom. So it's not just a random order, it's an order that you need to recognise and remember. Okay, let's move on. So, today we're going to talk about ER verbs. In French, there are 3 different types of verbs really. There are some verbs called ER verbs, there are some verbs called RE verbs, and there are some verbs called IR verbs. It's just the name of them, it's just at the end in those letters. ER verbs are really important. As you can see there, it says 90% of French verbs are ER verbs. So we really need to try and understand what we're doing today, because it's going to be really important. And here are some verbs that we might already know in year 7. So arriver, to arrive, écouter, to listen, jouer, to play, manger, to eat, parler, to talk, travailler, to work, trouver, to find, regarder, to watch. Now just to say this, a couple of things here. Regarder means to watch at the bottom there. It doesn't mean I watch, and you can't just put je at the beginning of je regarder, because then it would mean I to watch. So you need to think carefully about what you're going to do and change it a little bit. What I think we could also do at this point, we should pause the video here, we should write down those words, and you need to learn them as well. We'll move on to more. We've got aimer, to like, adorer, to love, détester, to hate. We've already done those words. J'aime, j'adore, je déteste. Those are our opinions. We've got porter, to wear, commencer, to start, like to commence. We've got habiter, to live, rentrer, to go home, or rester, to stay. Be careful with that one. It doesn't mean to rest, it means to stay. So we should pause it here. We should write those verbs down as well. You need to learn them off by heart. Okay, so now this is the important bit of the lesson really. If you've not understood anything so far, you just need to make sure you're listening to this next bit. So what we need to do is, ER verbs follow a pattern. We need to remember this, that they drop the ER off the end of the verb. So here's the verb to play. So if you want to say I play, the first thing we do is we drop the ER off the end. And we add on an E. Je joue. We put an E on the end. Je joue. If we want to say you play, you put ES on the end. If you want to say he plays or she plays, you put an E on the end. So il joue or elle joue. If you want to say we play, we put O and S on the end. If we want to say you play, we put EZ. And we want to say they play, we put ENT. Il joue. It's a silent T at the end. Now, we need to learn those endings really. E, ES, E, O and S, EZ, ENT. Just before we move on, some of you might be thinking, why do we not just drop the R off the end? Because in some places you can do that. And the answer to that question is, I want you to learn a pattern. We drop off the ER and we add on these certain endings. It doesn't work in some situations anyway. It doesn't work with new. We don't take the R off, we take the ER off. So I want you to learn a pattern and try and remember it that way. So those are the endings for ER verbs, and we need to learn them off by heart. We should write them down now. E, ES, E, O, N, S, E, Z, E, N, T. E, ES, E, O, N, S, E, Z, E, N, T. And what we could do at this point is if we go on YouTube, you can type in French ER verb song. There's lots of songs on there and it can help you to remember it. Some people put them into songs. You can try and learn it that way. It's very helpful that way. So those are the endings: E, ES, E, O, N, S, E, Z, E, N, T. You have to learn the order as well that they go in. Okay, so look at that as a few examples. So this is what I want you to have a go really here. We're going to have a go at a few examples. This is number one, I arrive. So you should pause it now and see if you can have a go at I arrive. You should have already written it down. So the way we do this is we get the word I, which is je, and we get the word to arrive, which is arriver. But at the moment, that means I to arrive. So we've got taken the E off the je, because we can't have two vowels at the same time next to each other. And what do we need to do? The first thing we do is we drop the ER off the end and we add on an E. J'arrive is I arrive. The second one, you talk. We should be able to do this hopefully. So you is tu and parler is the verb to talk. And again, you should have a go on your own first. So we drop the ER off the end and we put ES on the end. Tu parles. We don't pronounce the S. So you might ask a question. Tu parles français? Do you talk French? Next, we've got he plays. So we need the word for he, which is il, and the word to play is jouer. And then we need to make some changes, because at the moment that means he to play, which doesn't make sense. So we take the ER off the end, and then we add on an E. Il joue. So il joue au foot. He's playing football, or he plays football. Next we've got she listens. So again, have a go at this, please. We've got E, we've got L, sorry, she's the word for she, and écouter is the verb to listen. But at the moment, that means she to listen, so it doesn't really make sense. So we need to take the ER off the end, and we add on an E, just like the he line. So elle écoute. Elle écoute de la musique. She's listening to music, or she listens to music. Next, we've got the we line. We live. Again, you should be able to do this. You can go back and have a look at your notes. The word for we is nous, and the word to live is habiter. So we take the ER off the end, and we add on, you should know hopefully, ONS. E-E-S-E, ONS. Nous habitons, we live. So nous habitons à Heaton, Mersey, nous habitons à Stockport, nous habitons en Angleterre. We live in England, for example. Next, we've got you work. So this one is going to be vous, because we're talking to someone we don't know maybe. And travailler is the word for work. Remember, travailler, be careful, it doesn't mean to travel, it means to work. So we drop the ER off the end, and we add on EZ, vous travaillez. So you might ask someone, do you work in a bank? Vous travaillez à la banque, for example. The next bit, the last bit, we've got they stay. So a group of boys stay, or a group of men stay. We've got il, and then we've got the word rester. But at the moment, again, that means they to stay. So we need to be careful. So we take off the ER from the end, and we put on ENT. Il reste. We don't pronounce T at the end. Il reste. They stay, or they are staying. And finally, we've got the feminine, a group of girls, a group of women. Elles mangent. So that means they to eat. So we take the R off the end and we add on ENT. Elles mangent. They are eating, or they eat. Elles mangent au restaurant. They're eating at a restaurant. So basically we need to just remember that the first thing we do is we take the ER off the end of the verb and we add on these different endings. E-E-S-E, O-N-S-E-Z-E-N-T. E-E-S-E, O-N-S-E-Z-E-N-T. So we need to learn a few things after this video is finished. We need to learn some things off by heart. We need to learn some verbs and we need to learn the endings. E-E-S-E, O-N-S-E-Z-E-N-T. You should go on YouTube or try and make up your own song or find a song to try and learn. So if we want some more practice with this, I'm sure we do, you can go on a website called Languages Online. There's no password needed, and you click on the left hand side, you should click on the menu, it says Français, and then the grammar section, and there's lots of really useful exercises, ER verbs for beginners, and you can check them yourself on the website, see if you've got the answers correct. Okay, that's all for now. Au revoir, à bientôt.